the sermon then, I guess. All right, well, today we're going to continue in the prodigal sermon. Today we're talking about the prodigal brother. And this is, I think, something that we don't talk about maybe as much, but I think it actually has more impact for the church body than the prodigal son does. We love the story of the prodigal son because it's that lost and coming back. It's a very emotional story. But the brother, we kind of sometimes neglect when we think about the story. And I think that he's what I relate to probably the most. So as Jesus reaches the end of this parable, he's still talking about lost things. He is still dealing with the attitude of the scribes and the Pharisees towards a lost sinner. But the elder brother in this text pictures a person who is involved in godly things, but has no real relationship with God. He is in the Father's house, but he is lost. He is in that far-off country inside his heart. The younger brother was a physically lost child. He left home. The elder brother stayed home, but just because he stayed didn't make him any less lost. So, we know from last Sunday when we talked about the prodigal son, the son went off and did all those things, but we're going to pick up in verse 25 in Luke chapter 15, verse 25 to 32, talking about the elder brother. So Luke 15, 25 to 32. So, now this elder son was in the fields, and as he came and drew in the night, he came to the house. He heard music and dancing. And as he called to one of the servants and asked, "What does these things mean?" And he said unto him, "Thy brother is come, and thy father hath killed the fatted calf, because he hath received him safe and sound. And when he was angry and would not go in, therefore his father came out and entreated him. And he was answering, said to his father, Lo, these many years do I serve thee, neither transgressed I have at any time thy commandments, and thou never gavest me a kid, that I might make merry with my friends. But as soon as thou, son, was come and hath devoted thy living with the heretics, and thou hast killed the fatted calf for him." King James is very confusing. "And he said unto him, Son, thou art with me, and all I have is thine. It was meant that we should make merry and be glad. For thy brother was dead, and now is alive again. He was lost, and now is found." Okay, that was King James, and I stumbled through it. I apologize. But the story is easy to follow. The father killed the fatted calf for the son that came home. The elder brother was there in the fields working, angered by this, didn't want to come into the party. The father had to come out and try to get him to come in. He refused and stayed outside, and that's kind of where the parable ends. But in verse 11, it confirms that the father had two sons. We go back to that and we say the father had two sons. They both were lost. The first is the younger son was lost in a far-off country. He physically left, where the elder brother was lost but still lived in the father's house. The younger son was lost physically. He was lost because he gave into the pleasures of this world. He gave into his flesh, where the elder brother was lost moralistically. He maintained appearances, but his heart was wrong. So there are two ways that this parable talks about being lost. One way is that we break the rules. We do as you please. We live the life of the world. And the younger brother lived this life, and he was lost. Now, I think that that's the story that's easiest to tell. It's the easiest to see because we like to see that. We like to see the kid that went off from home, that left home, that went into the world, that did all the worldly things, maybe got into drugs, maybe got away from all these bad situations, and then whenever he comes home, it's a dramatic change. Those are the stories that we like because it's dramatic. It's evident when he comes back to Christ. The elder brother is not as dramatic of a story. It's not as evident when he changes his ways because he'd been living the right way. It's his heart that changed. It's not as dramatic. It's not as exciting to be the elder brother. The way the elder brother was lost was that he kept all the rules and he was good. This is the elder brother lived the life but was lost in his heart. We don't get this because, alright, well what I'm saying is, but if we are going to earn favor with God whenever we are lost, if you keep to the rules so that God will hear your prayers and bless you, you've missed the point. The elder brother kept to the rules and did all that was right so that he could receive the blessing from his father. It wasn't because he wanted to please his dad. It wasn't because he loved him. It was just so that he would get his share. So, the gospel is not about being good and you will be saved. It's about being saved and that will become being good. It's not that the works make you, it's that being saved makes the works. So, we first reach into the elder brother was respectable. He was a respectable person. He was a leader. He was the elder brother. And in this culture, the elder brother would take charge. He would get 2/3. As we go into Deuteronomy 21:17, it talks about that. It says that 2/3 of all the father had was his. So everything left was already his. He had all of the inheritance left. He was already taking charge. You can see that in the story. He was out in the field working. He was doing things. He was a leader. He was respectable. He was a laborer, secondly. When the story starts, the first thing that you see with the elder brother was that he was in the fields. He was busy doing his father's business, while the younger brother had been off in the far-off country living it up. The elder brother was home working, doing what he was supposed to be doing, while the younger brother went to wild living and having the fun of his life and spending his inheritance recklessly. You can see from that point of view where the elder brother might have been angry at the younger brother's return, thinking, I have been here doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and you went off and spent all of Dad's money, and you think you can come home and have this huge celebration? I relate to this older brother because I see what he was thinking. I understand it. And I think that all of us here, when you hear that story, we like to think, oh, how great it is that the younger brother returned. But if you were that older brother, would you be as excited about his return? Would you have that ability to be like, I'm thankful that you came home? Or would you go, well, guess who's back? His little brother going to come back, spend all my inheritance. That's all that's left now. And I feel like that's how we get sometimes in Christ. We get to where we're almost selfish with our salvation. When we see others come, we think, well, I've been here the whole time and they're going to get what I have already have to receive. We think of it that way. You can be good morally and you can be good and active in the church and still be lost. I think that's where the older brother was. In Matthew 7, verse 21 to 23, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter into the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. On that day, many will say to me, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, cast out demons in your name, and do many works in your name? And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness. We can go to church, we can act right, we can do the right things and still be an elder brother. We can still be lost even though we're doing all the right things. It's harder to see an elder brother than a younger brother. I think we like the parable and focus on the young son that went off because whenever he left Christ, whenever he was living in sin, it was physical. It was obvious. Whereas the elder brother could be me, could be any one of us in this church, and you wouldn't know it because he's living the face. He is the face of what a good Christian should be. But his heart is what God truly wants. It's your heart that sets you free. It's the heart that sees salvation. You might think that you are right with God, but you can't trust what you feel in your heart. If you think that doing good will save you, you're wrong. The heart is wicked and a deceitful place. God only knows the truth in your heart. In Jeremiah 17, verse 9 through 10, it talks about that. Now, with saying all of this and kind of pointing all this out, I'm not trying to make us as a congregation doubt our salvation. That's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm not trying to say that we're all elder brothers and we need to be careful because we aren't where we're supposed to be. I'm saying that don't slip in to the elder brother mindset. Don't slip into doing good works as that salvation. Don't slip in to going to church means that you have been saved. I am simply saying that religion doesn't equal salvation. Going to church and being a member doesn't equal confession. And being close to the things of God does not mean that you are saved by His grace. Going to church doesn't make you any more of a Christian than sleeping in your garage will turn you into your car. It's a very blank statement. We like to think because we associate with it, we become it. But that's not always true. I can go into the weight room, I can go into the gym every day, but unless I truly give into it and do something with it, it's not going to make me any better fit. And that's the thing with those elder brothers, is they live the life, they do the right things, but their heart is not truly being given to Christ. So, the next thing when we look into the story of the elder brother is his resentment. Heading home after a hard day's work in the field, he calls for the meaning of the noise that he hears. The servant then tells him, "Oh, your lost brother has returned. Your father has killed a fatted calf and has thrown him this huge party." Now, when he hears this, he becomes angry. When it says angry there, I think red-faced, fist clenched. Why is he coming home now? I have worked in the field all day. You can think about that. We've all worked a hard day's labor. And you think about that day that you just sweated and you're tired and everything you did, you just poured into your work, and you came home and somebody that you think doesn't deserve anything is getting praise and admiration, and not only that, they're throwing a party for him? You can be the elder brother there. I can see how it's easy to fall into that and think, why? Why? And you think, I've done the right thing my whole life. Where's my fatted calf? Where's my party? And you think about self instead of the salvation of the elder brother. We think that I've lived a good life. Why am I not being praised? Why are we happy that the lost is found whenever I've been found the whole time? We get stuck in the idea that if we live the life the whole time, that we should get more than that person that comes at the end. And the thing is, all that was left was his. He was getting more at this point. The younger brother didn't have anything. He was just happy. The father was happy for his return and wanted to celebrate the lost son coming home. But the elder brother couldn't see past self in what he thought he deserved. He thought he deserved more. So, when we look at his motives, we see that the brother hears the celebration, he's angry, and refuses to even go into the party. He refuses to take part in the celebration of his younger brother's return. Now, you see this in verse 29, and it reminds us the father and of his faithful servant, and he sees the feast and what is being done. You look at it, and the refusal to enter in is two parts. The first is saying that the elder brother did not care about his lost brother. If he didn't want to go into the party, why did he not want to rejoice in the return of his brother? He didn't really care about the brother. The second is, he probably didn't really care about his father. Because if he truly saw that his father was happy, and this meant so much to his father that he killed the fatted calf, like that's something that was very valuable to them. If the father was willing to sacrifice his calf to celebrate, even if it's something that the elder brother didn't want, he would still try to be happy for the father because it made the father happy, right? If there's things that make somebody that you love happy, you're going to try to be happy in it too with them. So the fact that he refused to do either shows two parts. He didn't really care about the elder brother. He didn't care about the brother's return. And he didn't care so much about what his father's opinion was. That's a very sad place to be. The elder brother would have known that the prodigal son's return was one of the greatest days in his father's life. It meant a lot to him. And the same thing when we take this outside the story and put it into our own lives. Whenever a lost person comes to Christ, whenever somebody that is living in sin changes their ways and returns home, even if we think that person doesn't deserve it, we know that it means so much to Christ. We know that Christ rejoices whenever they return home. We should be happy with the Father. When someone lost comes home, we should be happy of their return. Even if we're not happy for that person, we should be happy knowing that Christ rejoices in finding that lost soul. We need to be happy with Christ. The older son refused to join in the joy. Now, as the father had to go out to plead with him, just as he went and the younger brother had returned home to the family, now the father has to go out and plead with the older brother. So the younger son had left and the father had pleaded with him and gave him away and gave him his stuff to leave. Now he has to do the exact same thing with the elder brother who had stayed. He has to come outside. He has to stop the party and remove himself from the joy to come out and reconcile the elder brother. Now, we see this is the same attitude in the church and in some Christians' lives. Some won't rejoice when sinners are saved. We feel threatened or we feel like they don't deserve it. We see that. You look at Jonah, and we look at that, you see that where he goes to Nineveh. He stomped his feet. He was angry. He's like, why would God save these people? They don't deserve it. Do we deserve it? Even though we live this life, no. And the thing is, we see that the elder brother is angry that the son is saved, that he's returned home. He doesn't think that he deserves it. He feels threatened for what he thinks he deserves. Now, the second is they cannot get excited. People don't get excited when the church grows or they see this happening or the family growing because they feel like we're losing power. We feel like we're losing authority, our voice in the church. I see that we have a small congregation here. And if we grow, that means there's more people going to talk in this church. And for some of us, that's exciting. We love the idea of growth. But man, that's going to make our business meetings last longer. That's going to make some things change, right? So we think about that growth and we automatically, some of us go to a negative thought of that. We think, well, that's going to change this. Well, that's good. In the parking spot, I have a really good spot right now. Somebody might take it, you know? And you start thinking about all those other things instead of the growth and the purpose of it. We need to be willing to be excited about the growth of the church and not be afraid of what it might change. Now, the other part to that is we think that it might lose some of our own voice in the church. Every one of us has an important and irreplaceable part in God's plan and in His role. Nobody can take that away from you. Every one of you has something that God wants to do with your life. You are valued by Christ. And adding another fellow brother or sister to the family does not take away His love for you and your importance to the family. We should rejoice that there's a greater family and not worry about what it might do to ourselves. It won't change your relationship with Christ. He still will love you. He doesn't have like a limited amount of love, and then if He gives it to more people, you lose some of it. He still loves each and every one of us as much as He loved you the first day that you came. Now, also, some of us think that our service to the church is not about God, it's about them. We see what we want to serve the church because it's glorifying ourselves. When we see that sort of the elder brother, we see that he worked diligently and he worked hard and he was a leader in his area, but he did it for the wrong reasons. You can do the right things for the wrong reasons. People can look at your life and say, how great is this person and all that he's doing, but if you're doing it just so they say, look at how great he is, or you're doing it just so they say, look at how wonderful this person is or how good they are, you've missed the point of doing the good works. We fall into the role of the elder brother there when we do the right things for the wrong reasons. Now, we look at what we can gain from it as well. Now, looking into it, it says, the resentment of the elder brother is seen in his mentality. In his mentality towards the father, his mentality towards his younger brother, and the whole situation. Do you know what's wrong with him? It's that he is jealous. The elder brother is jealous of the son's return. He may be at home in body, but the elder brother is in the far-off country in his heart. He may have stayed home and done the right things, but in his heart he wanted to leave. He wanted to do all the things that gave him pleasure. But he said, I died to myself, I did this for you, but he didn't truly. You look at this, he won't go and do it because of his own pride. He wouldn't leave because he wouldn't let himself. So he gets mad at the one who did the very thing that he himself wanted to. We see that a lot, I think. I see that a lot with myself. I think, wouldn't it have been easier to come to Christ if I had just done something crazy and out in left ballpark and then realized how much I needed him and then came back? Wouldn't that story just be, it'd make my testimony, like they'd be like, wow, that was a great testimony. He went just crazy far out left field and then came home. My testimony doesn't sound exciting because I'm an elder brother. I've lived the life of a Christian my whole life. If you look at the life of Will, from the day that I became truly saved and the day before, most people probably wouldn't even know. Because I did the right things. I was the right person. I grew up in church. I did all those things so that whenever I finally did realize that I needed Christ and I was saved, I just gave it to him. My life, I was still doing the good works, but my heart was what changed. It was what I felt inside. It was what I truly wanted, was the happiness and all those things that I got from it. It was not just for the praise or just so that people thought, you were a Christian, you're a good guy. And I changed that attitude. And that was in college. But honestly, that was probably end of freshman year in college that truly changed. But if you would have met me in high school, you'd say, Will's a good Christian. Will's a good guy. He's not that bad. But my heart was wrong. I did it for the wrong things. I didn't know why I did it. It took that dying to self. Being a younger brother is obvious to see the change. Elder brothers, not as fun. It's harder. It's easier to get lost. Now, you don't have to be like that. Whenever we look at what was wrong with the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the scribes, they kept to the letter of the law. They kept the law. But their hearts were lustful, and they hated, but they longed for sin. You see that in them. You see that they did the right things. They followed. We talked about that in Sunday school. They may have followed what the Word said to a T, but they did it just because that was what the Word said. It wasn't because their heart wanted to. It wasn't because they felt that drive or that compassion or that grace from Christ. It was because it was just what they were supposed to do. And the elder brother does just what he was supposed to do. It's not that love and compassion that Christ Jesus shows us. It wasn't different. When you get saved, the Lord gives us a new heart. It says that in Ezekiel 36:27. It gives you the ability to live a new life. It changes us. Now, the thing is, you don't have to be a drunk to be out of God's will. We don't have to be an adulterer to live in the far-off country in our souls and our hearts. You can serve the church and sing in the choir. You can preach the word. I can stand up here and truly not be saved. You don't know my heart. That's where my salvation lies. And the thing is, you can look at somebody and their actions and we don't know. That's the trick with being an older brother. And that story is we don't know where people are in their life or what's going on with their soul and their salvation by just their actions. we have to be deeper in our soul. Now, the last thing we look at is his reaction to his father. His father came out and pleaded with him. The father went out and entreated his son to come into the feast. The word entreated means to come alongside of another and to offer aid, comfort, or to beg, to counsel, to encourage. He entreated the son to come in. Now, it also is comforter. The father loved his son. He loved the elder brother. That's what it goes back to earlier. Just because you're an elder brother and the other son comes home, it doesn't take away from the love of the father. The father still loves every one of us. He loved this elder son. He loved him deeply and wanted him to be a part of the rejoicing. He encouraged him to come in. Now, he refuses the father's promise. He refuses the father's plea. The father also then continued to praise him and said, I value our relationship. He said that all that I have left is yours. But that wasn't enough because he is still loving the younger son. We get to be like that, where all that we have, all that love we still have from Christ, but when we see it giving it to somebody else, it upsets us. I see that with athletes. You see it, I even took part of it. You see it where you do something well, and then it becomes like where that's kind of the baseline again, and like what you used to get praised for, you no longer get praised for. You ever do a job, and the first time you do it, people are just amazed at how well you did it. And they go, wow, you did a great job. But then that's the norm. All of a sudden, after a while, you do that all the time, they don't expect it, they don't think it's amazing anymore. And then it's like, after a long time, then somebody else does something not quite as well as what you're doing, and somebody goes, man, you did a great job with that. And all of a sudden, back in your head, you're like, well, I do that better than he does it. Why are you giving him praise? I should be praised every day. And you get jealous of that. That's the elder brother. We get to where our norm, we get to where we want that to be praiseworthy. And even if we're used to it, it's not enough. Even though he didn't truly respect his father, the elder brother, and he wanted the father's praise, he didn't want anybody else to have it. He may not have been getting it anymore, but he was mad that his younger brother got praise for something he felt like he had been doing the whole time. We can relate to that feeling. Now, as we look at this, I think one of the saddest parts is that everyone at the end of this story is happy and rejoicing in the younger brother's return, except the elder brother who's outside. I think that that's tragic that we look at, that everybody is happy at the end of the story. They're all at the feast, they're eating the fatted calf, and he refuses to go in and be happy. We as Christians need to know that we can't be miserable and refuse to be happy when someone is saved. We need to truly be happy because Christ is happy. See that joy and that love and that compassion goes outside of ourselves. The feast is there, and all he has to do is go inside to enjoy it. But he stood outside. Now, the conclusion here is that it is an open-ended story. We talked about this earlier. That you don't know if the elder brother finally decides, Dad's right. I should be happy that he is home. I should be happy that my brother has returned, that I have another brother in Christ, that I can see this fellowship. We don't know if he enters into the house and is thankful, or if he stays outside and is continually lost. We don't know. You have to choose how you, as an elder brother, will be. Are we going to stand outside and be like Jonah and stomp our feet and be mad that Christ has another family, another brother, another sister that has came into the family that we may think doesn't deserve it? Or will we be thankful and rejoice with him when we have the opportunity to save somebody that's a younger brother or a prodigal son? Do we take it and are thankful in it? Or do we think, I can't believe that Christ would save this kid. I can't believe that he is going to end up in heaven with me. And you think about that sometimes, and you see certain people that you're like, he's going to be there. That's crazy. Like, you want it to be this segregated club. but we should rejoice that our family gets bigger. In this story, the elder brother represents the religious leaders of Israel. They refused to come to the feast. They refused to enter the house at the end of the story. And if you know the story of the New Testament, you know what the religious leaders finally ended up doing. They killed their father. They murdered the father, and that was the ending of their story. They killed Jesus. They didn't enter into the feast. They couldn't accept that Christ would accept the younger prodigal son. They didn't like the idea of that open-ended grace that he gave. Now, we need to be careful as Christians, especially as we grow older and we get deeper into our Christianity, that we don't become the elder brother that lives by rules, that lives by doing the right things, but we still see the grace of Christ, that we can see that we don't want to live in that far-off country. We want to live at home with Christ in love and acceptance and feel that grace that he gives the younger brother, and that he truly wants to give it to you too. Christ's love is overwhelming, and he has it and wants every one of us to be a part of the family, younger brothers and elder brothers alike. And it doesn't matter if you're a younger brother that went off and lived in sin and finally returned home, or that you've lived here the whole time. The key is that Christ wants you to love him and to come home. It doesn't matter where we are or what we've done. Jesus is our salvation, and he loves us and wants us to be a part of the family.